New rules come in as of January the 1st, 2021. EU nationals already living here can carry on doing so under the existing rules, but after then, if you're in the EU, you'll have the same footing as job applicants from the rest of the planet. You'll need 70 points to qualify. Here with more details, the woman and politician who's bringing them in, Conservative Home Secretary Priti Patel. How will it work, Home Secretary? Good morning to you.
Good morning, Nick. Well, this is a new UK points-based system which will clearly take back control of our borders. And this will be for the first time in decades will the British government effectively run its own immigration policy and its own immigration system. So we are creating a single global immigration system that will treat EU and non-EU citizens equally by ending free movement through the points-based system, which will prioritise people's skills for our economy and obviously enable us, the government, to be in control of our policy, but to support the labour market in the right way through the skills that we actually need across the economy.
When I tell you that organisations including the British Chambers of Commerce, the Institute of Directors, the Confederation of British Industry, the Freight Transport Association, ABTA and a number of trade unions express their fears, how do you react?
Well, I think first of all, it's important to recognise that, look, we've been engaging with businesses for a number of years and they've called upon us and asked us to do a number of things, including removing the cap on the number of skilled workers, which is exactly what this scheme does. They've asked us to reduce the salary threshold, which is exactly what we're doing through this. We're working on a simplified sponsorship process for employers. We're reducing the visa processing time. And importantly, individuals will be able to switch between employers with a sponsor licence, and we will be abolishing the resident labour market test, which is exactly what the likes of the CBI and employer organisations have been calling for, and we've done that.
But the Institute of Directors say that UK's economic dynamism would be harmed. Trade union is saying the care system will be brought to its knees. The British Chambers of Commerce says the application process needs to be radically simplified, and the Freight Transport Association says we won't have enough HGV drivers. That's the reality.
Well, let me answer some of those points in turn, if I may. I think first and foremost, of course, the British government and our entire policy, not just on immigration, but also our business strategy and our economic strategy and policy, is about ensuring and securing the health and well-being of the British economy, but importantly ensuring that, we are training people, businesses are investing, we're getting economic growth, but also we level up across the country so that we have a high wage, high skilled and highly productive economy. That is the government strategy. Immigration is only one part of that. To your point about social care, the Migration Advisory Committee, which is the organisation I've been working with regards to the approach that we're taking, has been very clear that immigration is not the solution to addressing staffing levels in social care. We have been working, yes, with the sector, but with the Department of Health and Social Care. We're working alongside them to ensure, obviously, that people that work in the sector and want to work in that sector, they're not low-skilled individuals. Providing care and compassionate care requires skills. And, of course, people will be qualified to work in the care sector. They'll be able to come through our high-skilled work route through the points-based system, and that will continue. While at the same time, the Department of Health and Social Care are investing in skills training. They put in another £1.5 billion into the sector so that employers can invest in skills of people and recruit accordingly so that they get good people that can provide care and compassionate care and support in that sector.
Is it the end of the so-called Polish builder phenomenon, who are so key, as I'm sure you would agree, for inspiring and bringing about a lot of the economic success this country has enjoyed?
This is not about Polish builders. This is about
they can't come in now, though, can they, Secretary?
Well, of course, if they have the right kind of skills.
Well, it's unlikely a Polish builder is going to have that great a command of English and earning £25,000 per annum.
But if they are sponsored by an employer, a building firm, a contractor, then of course they will be able to come into the UK. And that is, it's not just about one particular example. The fact of the matter is, the British public spoke in 2016 in the referendum and 2017 in the election and 2019. They are fed up. They want to see a British government with its own immigration policy and system, a government that is in control, that will take back control of our borders. Yes, prioritise the brightest and the best from around the world, support the needs of the UK economy, and end our reliance effectively on low skill skilled workers that obviously more often than not are also low paid. So there are some very big and significant reforms here. This also means we're ending access to welfare for 5 years for people that come to our country. And of course, previously we were unable to do all of this because of our membership of the European Union.
HGV drivers, a shortage of those, do you recognise that?
Well, again, this will be down to we'll still be working on the basis of we'll keep a.
This is the idea. You can turn the tap on. So I mean, it's a very crude way of putting it. But if we are short of drivers, you can suddenly make adjustments, and it becomes attractive for drivers to come here. Is that the point?
So it's based upon labour market data, and that is really important. So obviously, needs of our economy, labour market data to monitor the pressure in key sectors, and this will be a phased approach, Nick, in terms of our immigration policy. So over time, you'll see tradable points come in where when we need more people in certain sectors with certain skills, they'll be able to trade in points basically, so they'll acquire more points based on the needs of the labour market.
I'm sure you, like me, will commend the Metropolitan Police officers who were involved with an incident on a train in London where a taser was deployed. We won't talk about that because it's going before the courts, but you have said in the past that there will be more tasers. What is the timing of the rollout of those,
Well,
Secretary?
we're already rolling that out, Nick, and you know my views on tasers. I've been at the forefront of leading the investment and empowering police forces across the country to ensure that they train and equip officers. We're doing this already. In fact, I think could have been the last time we spoke. I was announcing the rollout of our taser programme, the funding for that, and obviously police and crime commissioners and police forces were basically looking at applying for those funds. That is taking place, and we are seeing more and more forces around the country. It's an operational decision by police chiefs. They're making stronger decisions in this area. So we're seeing a greater uptake of tasers and the use of tasers by officers.
I'm sure you, like many of my listeners, were distressed to see some of the lawns of Trinity College dug up by protesters who have a valid right, of course, to protest, and good luck to them. Should the police have taken more action? One of your Conservative colleagues is horrified by and his words, by the level of police inaction, Home Secretary.
Well, I think, first of all, look, the police are operationally independent, but I think they must also ask themselves, police forces around the country make their own judgments and decisions. They have to ask themselves, is it acceptable that if vandalism is taking place on private property, if there are issues around public order and the rule of law being stretched, and, that's clearly occurring, then the police will need to take action.
So they should have nicked some of these. They should have arrested some of these people.
They are operationally independent. They will have to apply their judgment. But where vandalism is taking place, disrespect of public order, and where, as I said, the rule of law is being compromised, and obviously that's why we have police officers to make sure public order is met, but obviously the appropriate action is taken.
So they should have acted in this instance?
Well, my personal view is that they could have acted.
Respectfully, Home Secretary,
I wasn't there, Nick. Look, I wasn't there, and I haven't seen the pictures of them.
Well, what do you need to know?
Well, look, I do take the view that if vandalism is taking place, and that is a matter for the police and law enforcement, it's an operational decision for them. The police are independent in terms of operation judgments and decisions. They would have been following whatever advice was given to them by their chief constable and their command.
I would imagine you were far too busy and unable to watch the Brit Awards last night. But one winner has decided the man for whom you work is, quotes, a racist. That's Dave, the singer, talking of Boris Johnson. Is the singer right?
Well, I did not watch the Brit Awards. I didn't see the performance. He is not correct at all. I have worked with the Prime Minister for a number of years, even before I became Home Secretary. I've known him for quite a while now. He most certainly is not racist. And, I appreciate that the singer, the rapper, Dave, has managed to achieve a range of headlines off the back of this. But the reality is, it's very far from the truth. The Prime Minister is not racist.
Should he have gone up north and to Wales and to the Midlands as part of these floods? Where is Boris?
Well, the Prime Minister, along with the rest of us and his ministerial team, are working across government dealing with the practical ways in which we can provide support to the flood-affected communities. Flooding is terrible, Nick. Anyone that's been affected by flooding, we know the impact, the devastation for families, homes, businesses. And right now, he is overseeing, along with the Secretary of State for DEFRA, the public, well, not just the public response, but the practical response in terms of how we can provide assistance to those people that have been affected.
I mean, David Cameron, the famous Boxing Day floods, he was there in his Wellington boots quite soon afterwards. One of his predecessors, Gordon Brown, did the same. Does Boris Johnson not have any wellies?
No, I think, I'm afraid flooding has become too much of a frequent occurrence of late. I mean, we've seen far too much flooding in recent months for a range of reasons. We are focused, and the Prime Minister as well, he's focused on the practical things that we can do as a government, the flooding relief measures that we can put in, the financial support that we can give to homes, families, individuals and to businesses, ranging from council tax relief, but also measures to help them to alleviate flooding measures as well. That's what he's really occupied with and focused on. I don't think this is about putting on a pair of Wellington boots and necessarily going up to areas when people need practical support at these very critical times.
Lastly and briefly, and your team might not have briefed you on this, front page of the Times, a convicted killer with no history of extremism launched a jihadist attack on jail staff last week. He faked a suicide attempt to lure officers into his cell in the segregation unit at Winchester Jail. He's a 20-year-old man, Zeneral Imaru, the first person to be convicted of an acid attack killing. The most important thing is the wardens are safe. Home Secretary, does this speak about an unacceptable level of aggression in our jails?
Well, I think, first of all, there'll obviously be an investigation and inquiry into what has happened, so I don't want to make any general comments on that in particular. I've got very, very strong views, as you will know, in terms of the protection of our public servants, people on the front line, including officers, as well as prison officers and staff. You know, their protection and their safety, is first and foremost. We'll obviously have to look into what has happened.
Yes.
But quite frankly, we are speaking about terrorist offenders in prison. These are dangerous individuals and they're in prison for a reason. And, I think the conviction, I don't know the details of the conviction of this particular individual, but, this individual is in prison to protect the public.
But lastly, I wonder, and I think you would accept that some of what you've put together as regards immigration is what's seen in Australia. Australia also have what are called post-sentence detention orders, which obviously you'll understand what that means. You do your time, but you're deemed to still be at risk. So,
yes,
as in the attack we saw in Streatham and London Bridge, you still don't get out. Is that something the government might consider? Another idea from Australia, post-sentence detention order.
Don't forget, Nick, we're in the process right now, and I think it was just last week, we took through the House of Commons emergency legislation, very specific on individuals, terrorist offenders for terrorist offences, so they do not automatically receive early release, as we've seen in 2 instances so far, that they go through a proper parole board panel, they're scrutinised in terms of their own behaviours. We need to constantly review our systems and our practices, and that's exactly what this government is doing.